Hey guys, welcome back. So another theory, feminist theory. This one's called existential feminism. The existential part is sort of rooted in the idea that of a person's experience or lived existence. Um, it is, it's kind of called this, I think, because historically it comes before some other ones that are going to also deal with lived experience, and because it's sort of founding mother of this theory is Simone de Beauvoir, who was an existential philosopher. It is a theory of difference, like cultural feminism was, but where cultural feminism said, so where are women? Well, they're in a different position than men, and thank God they are because they're more moral, and therefore we should put them into government. A very positive look at this difference. Existential um, existential feminism is not nearly as optimistic about things. So basically, it answers the question of where are the women? They're in a different position, but it's a position that, at least as articulated by de Beauvoir, is a position that does not allow them um, to necessarily self-actualize, because as we talked about when I talked about the second wave of feminism, a lot of women had limitations on their freedom to choose the life they wanted to have. Okay, so here's how Simone de Beauvoir describes, sociologically analyzes this experience of being different but not having the freedom that a man does. She says, human thought, she's a philosopher, human thought and culture tends to organize around binaries, so either this or that. And she says that that's true of our experience of gender. You're either man or woman. But, and this is the big issue, and in fact, it's right here. She says it's not an equal, like two sides of a coin situation. It is, you can be a man or you can be other than a man. So a slight change to that idea of either or. In this case, it's kind of either other. You can be a man or you can be something other than a man. And this is what she meant by that. Women are assigned opposite qualities to men. So it's like society decided men are this way. Men are active and they're brave and they're complicated and stuff like that. And then an analysis an analysis wasn't done to then say, well, what are women like? It was just, well, women are other than that, so they must be the opposite. Men are active, women must be passive. Men are brave, women must be timid. Men are complex, women must be simple. Men can dominate and take control. Women must be protected because they can't do those things. Um, she said, she said, obviously this is going to have implications, right? If that's how you set up society, men are this way and women are other than that way, it's going to have huge consequences for women's ability to live the life that they want to live. Um, she said, partially men end up constructing a world that women are not welcome in. So that's part of the result of it. But the other part, she says, is that women also internalize this sense of otherness. They experience themselves, this is her, I'm not trying to like mansplain this. She says women experience themselves not as actors in the world, but as objects in a man's world. Best case scenario is an object that some man will desire. Which is, that's objectification, right? I mean, we usually think of objectification in terms of like physically checking a person out and defining them purely in terms of that. But in this case, she's talking about the fact that we divide the world up between actors, men, and objects, women. And the women just have to kind of live their lives around around the active, agentive men. Okay, that's it for this. Let me get to my conclusion. What she says, let's see. So an existential feminist says that women's ways of being, an internalization of culture, which we got to. Oh, this is the last part. She says, so what do you do? So you're Simone de Beauvoir, you're a genius, and you confront a world that's like this. How do you liberate yourself from this this either other culture? And she thinks there are two choices. You can become like a man. We've had that happen over the course of history. Most recently, if you ever watch, which I highly recommend, the documentary Misrepresentation, there's a long segment in it where it talks about Hillary Clinton and her bid for the Democratic nomination in 2008. So this is before she runs against Donald Trump, when she's up against Barack Obama. And it talks about the difficulty she had of, if you are looking at this from an existential feminist perspective, if you are a woman, you are other than a man, so you are not fit for leadership because men are leaders and so women are other than that. So Hillary Clinton has to present herself not as a woman. She has to present herself in some way, in a kind of a masculine way. But the problem is, our culture isn't equipped, or at least in 2008, wasn't really equipped, and I'd argue it still isn't really caught up, at least at the time that I'm making this video in March of 2021. We still haven't quite caught up with the idea of a woman being the leader. So if she's not going to act feminine and she's going to try to act masculine, we're not going to accept that either, because she's not being the way she's supposed to be, and therefore it's an impossible situation. But that was option one that de Beauvoir talked about. The other option is, and this is the option that makes more sense to me, although, like, I don't want to say, like, oh, so yeah, that's easy, just develop a non-androcentric culture. Yeah, we've had an androcentric culture for the last 300,000 years in different places. Let's just fix that. But, I mean, she also has a good point, right? If we can change the definition of from man and other to look at any kind of person as equally valuable, as not having essentialist attributes to them, but we instead are going to deal with individuals as individuals, that would be kind of a cool thing to do. All right. That is it for existential feminism. It is our second theory of difference. Remember, women are occupying a different position. Both cultural feminism and existential feminism, technically not sociological theories, although on the test I'm absolutely going to ask you about them. But they don't have a great sociological analysis of how it got to be this way. Our next two theories of difference are going to be feminist institutional theory and feminist interactionist theory. Both of those are going to have a sociological analysis of the cause of this. So, I don't know, we'll be on more familiar ground. All right, that's it for existential feminism and Simone de Beauvoir. I'll see you in the next video when we talk about feminist institutional theory.